Is it recording now? Oh. Okay. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Alhamdulillah, welcome everyone to the Maqasid Institute's research forum number 4. And so my function here is just to start and hand over to our moderator, Sister Dr. Sundus Assad. And she will moderate. She'll also introduce some of the speakers, and she'll moderate the session, inshallah. Please, Dr. Sundus, you could open your camera. Yeah, all right.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. It is a pleasure. My name is Sundus Saad, and I am a working mom. I'm a clinician at the University of California, San Francisco. I work at the Women's Health Primary Care Center, and Alhamdulillah, I'm a recent graduate from the advanced course of Maqasid methodology. I became a part of the Maqasid Research Network since its inception. I've been following Professor Auda since I was 12 years old. No need to speak of my age now, but that speaks volumes, mashallah, of the Maqasid Institute and that kind of work. So I'm so really excited to see the fruit being reaped in my lifetime, which is in itself is a blessing, mashallah. And hopefully that our upcoming Hajj and pilgrimage and walkathons go towards the right qibla. So Maqasid methodology is actually a nice way to do our tawaf in the academic realm and sphere. And I'm familiar with most of the names since I'm also part of the Muslim mental health clinicians. And I think that's how I fell onto this honor of being in the presence of all these wonderful scholars, mashallah, and the kind of work that is being done. I look forward to moderating the question and answer sessions, and I would like to leave you with some housekeeping notes. Inshallah, we would love to take the questions in the Q&A section of the webinar, and you can put them in the chat. I will be following both spaces, inshallah, and taking notes. It will be great if we have productive and efficient session, so it's not too lengthy for people to follow until the end, and it is concise and to the point, inshallah. So I'll do my best to moderate an efficient session. It is a pleasure to pass the baton to Professor Jasser Auda to present our guest speaker, Professor Bagus Riyono. But I think that Brother Sayyid Jamaluddin Miri, who is also one of my colleagues on the Muslim mental health clinicians, will be introducing one of the fruits of Maqasid Institute that has been in the work for a while. And I look forward, inshallah, to seeing more people from the attendees in the audience joining the Maqasid Research Network. And if you have not yet taken the advanced course in Maqasid methodology, I highly recommend it. You can never stop learning. It is an amazing course. It's very easy, accessible, and doable even for busy people who are running and juggling many hats and hijabs, inshallah. So looking forward to a wonderful session. Welcome aboard.
Barakallah feekum. Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Sundus. Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Ildus. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Yusra. Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Professor Yasser Auda, for honoring us to be here. We know that the fruit of Maqasid Institute is the fruit of your hard labor. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from you and all of our excellent scholars like Dr. Professor Bagus, who is one of my teachers as well. And I'm honored to be with both of you as my teachers, Professor Auda, Professor Bagus, and also Dr. Ildus, Dr. Sundus, and Sister Yusra, and rest of the Maqasid Institute, all of the participants, all brothers and sisters in the Al-Balkhi Institute and ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology. It's an honor to be with all of you. My name is Sayyid Jamaluddin Miri. I'm the co-founder and director of ISIP, International Students of Islamic Psychology, and the Al-Balkhi Institute of Islamic Psychological Studies and Research. I had the honor to do some courses with Professor Auda a couple of years ago, and I got to know him, and we had a lot of beautiful conversations. And I also had the honor to get to know Dr. Zaid, who is also one of the founders, together with Professor Auda, of the Maqasid Institute. And we started our discussion regarding how can we find ways of utilizing the Maqasid methodology in the field of Islamic psychology. And then me and Dr. Professor Bagus connected as well, and Professor Bagus has already utilized it in his research, which is very admirable. So hence why also Dr. Professor Bagus will showcase his research today and how you can utilize Maqasid methodology. Very briefly, brothers and sisters, why we are here today is actually to also launch the Islamic Psychology Research Network that has been established together with Maqasid Institute, the Al-Balkhi Institute of Islamic Psychological Studies and Research, and ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology. This is really something groundbreaking, and hopefully this will be a benefit for all people who wants to do research within the field of Islamic psychology from a Maqasid point of view, utilizing the Maqasid methodology as advocated by Professor Auda. This is also a way for us to actually bring about research that could address a lot of the modern issues that we're facing today as an ummah. There is a lot of modern issues, a lot of reflections, a lot of things that are affecting the Muslim ummah, Muslims and Muslimah all over the world. And instead of reaction, we need to have action in place as well. And one action is to create research rooted in Qur'an and Sunnah, utilizing the Maqasid methodology as a way of addressing a lot of these modern dilemmas that we're facing as Muslims and Muslimas all over the world. So we're very honored to promote this network and to launch it today. Actually, this will be our official launch today, we can say. And this is something very groundbreaking between three very important institutions and movements within the field of Islamic thought generally. My background is in counseling. I'm a licensed counselor. I'm also a student, and I also have postgraduate diplomas in Islamic psychology. And as a seeker of knowledge and also as a practitioner, I can say that a lot of things that we're facing as practitioners, and this is also something that a lot of my colleagues are mentioning that are in the mental health field, is things that the Western psychology and the mainstream psychology do not in an efficient way find solutions for. And that's why we believe in rooted revival. And where does the rooted revival come to when it comes to addressing the modern issues that we're facing, whether it's our clients or ourselves as practitioner or as Muslims or Muslimah? It comes through understanding the objectives of Sharia, the objectives of Quran, the objectives of our Sunnah, and root ourselves in that while we work with revival as well. And this is something that I really feel that the Maqasid Institute and Professor Auda is a great champion for. So we're very honored to do this. I will very briefly tell about this partnership. And we will also share a WhatsApp group link and an email address in the Zoom chat for all of you who would like to be more updated about the Islamic Psychology Research Network, how to be involved. If you have any questions, feel free to email or join the WhatsApp group. And this is open for researchers, scholars, mental health professionals, but also students of Islamic psychology. So for all of you who are interested in Islamic psychology, who want to do scholarly work, utilizing the Maqasid methodology, but also generally being updated about what's happening in the research network, feel free to join the WhatsApp group and the email address that will be shared in the Zoom chat. So the Al-Balkhi Institute of Islamic Psychological Studies and Research and the International Students of Islamic Psychology, ISIP, are very happy to present this memorandum of agreement that we just finalized with the Maqasid Institute to jointly promote Islamic psychology through the newly formed IPRN, the Islamic Psychology Research Network. The important partnership centers in the Maqasid methodology and objective-based approach in the research, education, and outreach efforts of one of the world's leading organizations in Islamic thought and some of the leading organizations in the Islamic psychology movements. Hence, these three partners have collaborated on establishing this network. Under the terms of the MOA, the Maqasid Institute and the Al-Balkhi Institute and the ISIP will jointly do as following: normalizing mental health and wellness as part of Islam's holistic approach to life, produce knowledge based on the revelation, the Quran and Sunnah, utilizing the comprehensive revelation-centric and objectives-based methodology, create, manage, and promote the Islamic Psychology Research Network, and also organize events to disseminate research findings like this event that we're doing with Professor Bagus, inshallah. This MOA is a significant step forward for the field of Islamic psychology and is expected to have a positive impact on scholarship in the area of mental health from an Islamic paradigm. It represents a commitment by three organizations to collaborate on research, education, dissemination of knowledge, and community outreach. Islamic psychology is a science that has over 1,000 years of research development as part of its foundation and tradition. And there's a critical need to educate the public about the Islamic psychological, scholarly, and clinical tradition rooted in the Quran and Sunnah. And it is a truly honor to be able to do this in partnership with the Maqasid Institute, using their vast experience and expertise, Maqasid Institute's expertise, within Islamic research and various disciplines. So this is some of the objectives, and why we're establishing this research network. The Al-Balkhi Institute of Islamic Psychological Studies and Research is a research and educational center and Islamic psychological think tank dedicated to promoting the relevance and importance of understanding Islamic psychology, sciences, civilization, culture, and psychology in general, and its impact on society and human beings. The ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology, is a movement designed to connect people with diverse backgrounds interested in Islamic psychology. The aim of the organization and movement is to disseminate knowledge, share resources, and discuss best practices in an accessible manner. And the Maqasid Institute is a nonprofit research think tank dedicated to advancing Islam's moral and intellectual leadership with a focus on connectivity, holism, and objectives-based thinking. Maqasid Institute provides educational programs, conducts research, and publishes materials on objectives of the revelation. So mabruk to all of the organization, mabruk to all of the scholars who have made this into fruition and realization, and mabruk to all brothers and sisters in all of these three organizations for your amazing khidmah. And that's why we're here today to launch this research network. So thank you so much for listening, and I will hand over the microphone again to Dr. Sundus, and Jazakallah khairan, Professor Auda, Dr. Bagus, Professor Bagus, and Dr. Ildus, and Sister Yusra for honoring us in this partnership. An honor to learn from all of you. And thank you to all the participants for joining. An honor to be with all of you. Most welcome. Welcome to the network, inshallah.
Barakallah fi you.
MashaAllah. Mubarak al-Jamia. May Allah ease your affairs and bring the best out of this effort. I believe, Professor Auda, you have pretty much ran this pattern of being so close to your speakers and all those guests for Maqasid Institute. You have kindly insisted on introducing your friend and our guest speaker, so I'll pass the microphone to you, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala as'ad al-khalqi wa khatam al-rusuli Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. ورضي الله عن المهاجرين والأنصار ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد. Thank you very much, Dr. Ildus, Dr. Sundus, and Sayyid Jamaluddin. Thank you so much for the introductions, and congratulations for the IPRN, and who is the best scholar to speak at the launch of the International Psychology Research Network than our friend and brother and Ustad, Professor Bagus Riyono. I have gotten to know Professor Bagus years back, and I had the pleasure of meeting him and his honorable wife and family in Indonesia. And I see him, inshallah, next month again. And I am preparing a lecture now that I will give this afternoon here in Ottawa, in Canada, where I'm speaking to you, targeting a number of graduate students here. And I was just writing the slide of who is a scholar. And that is in the definition of ijtihad and the definition of fiqh. And what we are doing today, listening to Professor Bagus, is listening to fiqh, but fiqh of psychology, fiqh ilm al-nafs. That is a fiqh that we have not been working on for a number of centuries. And as an ummah, we have been basing our fiqh of ilm al-nafs on Freud. And that is not right. I was very happy, and I learned a lot from reading Professor Bagus's paper on the critique of Freud. And that is the kind of research that we promote. We want to critique models that we could agree with some of their proposals, but they have fundamental disagreements from an Islamic perspective, because the Islamic worldview is a different worldview. And especially when it comes to al-insan, the human. The human in Islam is a very different human and a very different definition from secular sciences and material sciences that define the human in a different way. And we really cherish the contribution that Professor Bagus is trying to make here in terms of the fundamentals of that knowledge. We don't want to call it Islamic psychology. It is psychology, but it is from our Islamic point of view. It is not an Islamization of any other theory. It is actually coming from who we are and our history and our reality. We have been talking psychology before these people were born, who define now the sciences of psychology. And we are continuing as an ummah. The Prophet ﷺ said that this ummah is going to continue until the end of time. And you don't know whether the end of the ummah is better or the beginning of the ummah, he said, ﷺ. And this is part of where the end of the ummah is still carrying the flag and continuing the march. I don't want to take more time in order to listen as much as possible to Professor Bagus and to have questions and answers with him. I would like to congratulate all the partners in the new Psychology Research Network. This is one of our dreams came true, and one of our dreams came true as well for our Professor Bagus to speak in our research forum. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullah khairan, and welcome. Maqasid, Prof, and please go ahead.
Thank you, mashallah.
Of course, I didn't introduce the background of the professor and the degrees and so on. You will find this on the internet. I introduced with the important stuff, that you are going to listen to somebody who is a mujtahid in that fiqh. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Is it now my time or?
It is. Dr.
Okay.
Sundus, it's up to you.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, namadu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa billahi ta'ala min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Innahu may yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarika lahu wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma sholli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah. Astaghfirullah. Mashallah. I kind of feel very honored to be in this forum, and I didn't expect that it's going to be, like this big or this broad, and I didn't expect that Prof. Jasir Auda will come to this forum. I thought it was only for students.
Mashallah.
Mashallah.
I am a student, Prof. I am a student of knowledge.
Yeah, of course. We are all students because we are all studying. Yeah, okay. But actually, this is very touching. Yeah, very heartfelt for me to be here. And I have to make some disclaimer here that actually in the Maqasid world, I'm a beginner. Yeah, and the work that is published from the Maqasid approach that I have written, I authored, has just only one. It just published like a few days ago. So that's the result of after I studied the Maqasid methodology since the 2016 from Dr. Ali Abdul Munim, which is also Professor Auda's student. And what I'm going to present here is what I have learned so far. So please do not take this as like the benchmark or the best practices. It's just what I have learned so far. And alhamdulillah, I've been trying to understand this method so seriously, and I find some answers of my question about how to really develop the psychological science, which is based on the Quran and Hadith. And for that, I would like to ask permission to share the slide. Okay. Wait. Sorry. Oh. Okay. So I would like to start with telling you that I already shared the article that has just been published from the journal Minbar from Russia. That is one of my work from the Maqasid method, but today I'm not going to present the paper because the paper is kind of long and like kind of you may say complicated if you read it. So I let you to read it in your free time, and to find to to understand it slowly, because I myself, when I read it again, I think it's gonna need some effort, yeah, to really integrate all the ideas. So Alhamdulillah, with Allah's help, my paper finished and get published. And what I'm trying to share here is my experience, and also my my understanding of the Maqasid approach, especially when it is applied to constructing theory in psychology. So since the time is limited, and I think I will only cover two topics here. The first one is why we have to use Maqasid approach in studying, especially psychology, and how to start to study this, to study or to construct a theory from this Maqasid approach. So it's very small part of the whole idea of constructing theory, but I hope this starting point can give you some ideas, some inspiration, some motivation, yeah, to do a similar thing, so that we can have a new body of knowledge in psychology, which is based on the Qur'anic and based on the Qur'anic and Hadith, yeah, messages. Okay, so for the first topic, I want to start, because the title here is constructing a theory. So I will start with the question of why we need theory. So a lot of people think, and a lot of comments, yeah, that I receive from my students, yeah, they kind of reluctant, yeah, to learn about theory. They say, show me the practice, yeah, don't talk only about theory, show me the practice, I want the practice. Too much, it's already too much theory, something like that. But I think those kind of questions miss the point about what is the meaning of practice. And actually, it's not only from the Maqasid approach. I already learned even from psychology itself. Yeah, from Kurt Lewin, is the social psychologist. He said that a good theory is, there is nothing so practical than a good theory. So practice and theory actually is two sides of the same coin. So you cannot neglect each of them, any of them. Yeah, and in Islamic approach, we know that theory usually refer to ilm, yeah, and practice refer to amal. So ilm and amal is not two kind of, it's not separated. There are two things from the two sides of the same coin. So that's why when I talk about theory, what I'm thinking is something that is practical, some things that help us to understand ourselves, help us to do things better, help us to achieve our purpose better and more efficient and more clear. So the theory is not just ideas or concept that is not practical. Okay, so theory is something that is practical. And why do we need this? From what I have learned in science, yeah, in the basic science, that a theory is something to describe, to explain, to predict, and to control. So from this definition, we know that actually a theory is the starting point of the practice. It's not only a starting point, but it's intertwined with the practice, because when we predict something, but we control something, it needs some theory. And sometimes people use theory without being aware what kind of theory they are using. So this is very risky when you do things you think you don't need theory, but you do things based on some theory that you are not aware of. That's what's happened usually in psychology also, but I have seen and experienced, that some psychologists practice, but they don't really understand the theory behind that. And that makes some Muslim psychologists, like Prof. Jannah said, practicing Freudian therapies, because they think this is the theory, because this is the practice that I've learned so far, so I'll practice it without considering the theory behind it. Okay, so and since the function of the theory eventually is to control behavior, to control situation, to control emotion, and so on and so on. Why do we have to refer to the Quran? So let's understand what is the Quran, what the Quran is. So the Quran actually is the guidance. Quran is the guidance of our life, for our life. And the meaning of guidance, to guide means to control, but through knowledge. When you are guided, you are directed by knowledge, by information, by understanding. So that's why a Quran is a guidance, so it will give us direction. It will move us to a certain direction. It will guide us. It will control us. It will control our behavior, our thinking, our emotion, and so forth. So that's why when we refer to the Quran, it is a coherent with the concept of theory, meaning that we need to understand, if we want to make a Quran as our guidance, if we want to use Quran to guide us, so we have to understand the theory that the Quran is trying to convey to us, the theory that the Quran trying to make us understand. Okay, so when we fail to understand the Quranic theory, when we fail to understand what the Quran tell us and why, and then unfortunately, I mean, maybe we are using Quran, maybe we reciting Quran, but actually we are not using Quranic theory. Now, I will show the example in a minute. So if we don't understand why and the purpose, the message of the Quran, we will automatically use other theories, which is not Quranic. So the choice is only two: you follow the Quran or you follow something else. So that's why it's very important to understand the message of the Quran, the purpose of the Quran, the guidance of the Quran, so that we can apply it to our life. Okay, and it's very important to realize, to contemplate what kind of theory that we are using when we do our behavior, our life, when we live our life every day. So this awareness is very important, because if you are not aware of this, then I mean, there's a risk that you will be misguided. Okay, so the Maqasid methodology actually help us to construct this theory, help us to understand, help us to analyze and to construct, to analyze and then to synthesize what actually is the message of the Quran. That's the power of this Maqasid methodology. So that's why for me, actually, I think we have to. It's not option. It's not an optional, but this is something that we have to do. That we have to apply a Maqasid methodology to understand the message of the Quran. Why? Because people, Muslim Ummah, Muslim scholars, claim to follow the Quran, but they don't. When they don't apply this Maqasid methodology, they will be. I mean, there's a risk. Yeah, there's a risk. I don't say that everyone is like that, but there's a risk, a very big risk that they might follow other theory, utilizing or making use of the Quranic verses, but they are not using the framework, the worldview, and also the purpose of the Quran, but they are reciting the Quran to applying some other theories. So how can that happen? How can that happen? So I will show you an example, and this is very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. I just found it from the literature about this article, and I think this article is quite popular. I don't know if you are familiar with this article. This article is about attachment to God and Islamic spirituality. So this paper is trying to construct a theory how the Muslim attach to God, to Allah. Okay. So what's wrong about that? Well, if you just read the title, maybe you don't see anything wrong about that. But if you read the abstract, you're gonna start wondering why is this happening? Okay, let me just show you the abstract. This is the abstract, and usually in the abstract there is a purpose, there's a method, and there's a result. Yeah, and there's conclusion. So let's jump into the conclusion. So this is the conclusion of the study. He said that Muslims use Allah as a secure base for living in this world, in the world. So there are two big question marks here. What do you mean by use Allah? So they put Allah as something that something that you can use, yeah, for your benefit, something like that. And again, the purpose here is life in the world. And as a Muslim, if you just read the Quran, like just read without any deep understanding, you just read it, you can see that the purpose of our life is not in this world. So these two statements in the conclusion, I think it's very disturbing. Yeah, how come they concluded this way? Let's look at the method. Yeah, so we will, I mean, if the paper is based on a classical or maybe a conventional psychological theory or references, then we will understand, okay, that's your idea, that's your your thinking. Yeah, but what about this paper that is this not referring to Quran or Hadith? Well, actually, if we look at the method here, he said, there's quite long. I highlight the points here. They say they refer to the Asmaul Husna. They refer to the Quranic verses. They refer to the Hadith. So they are referring to the Quranic text, to the Quranic, what do you call it, resources. Yeah. But how come they conclude that the Muslim use Allah to seek for, comfort in this world? How come the conclusion is that way? Is that what the Quran said? Okay, so we need to because even though they did refer to the Quran and Hadith, we still have to be careful, because there is something behind that that will influence how they conduct the study, how they analyze the data, how they collect the data, and how they make a conclusion. Okay, so they did refer to Quran and Hadith, but there's something wrong. Somewhere along the way there is something wrong. Yeah. Okay. We need some deeper analysis to really find what's wrong in this, logic in this discipline of research. Yeah. Where is the mistake here? Okay. Now let's look at the method. Yeah. They say they refer to the Asmaul Husna, but what is the criteria of inclusion that he made? Yeah, he said that he referred to the Asmaul Husna. Let me just read it with the computer so that you can understand the whole text. Yeah.
A, the beautiful names of Allah, divine attributes, for any attributes that signify Allah as a caring, nourishing, and omnipresent attachment figure.
So they just choose some of the Asmaul Husna who illustrate Allah as a caring and these attributes. Okay, so they pick and choose of the Asmaul Husna according to their purpose. Okay, and the second one is said that they also referred to the Quranic verses. Yeah, let's hear what they are picking in.
These stories of the Quran that signify dynamic attachment relations between Allah, His prophets, and servants.
So there's some inclusion criteria about these stories. So again, they just pick some of the stories, yeah, to support their purpose, and their purpose actually is not quite clear here. And then the third one, there's four resources.
Any verses of the Quran that emphasize the caring and supportive relationship between Allah and His servants.
So they always limit the resources, the reference that refer to, that talks about caring and something that that serves their purpose again. Yeah, if you take good attention to it, so now you can understand the direction of this study, the purpose of this study. This is the last one, the fourth method, the fourth reference that they're using.
The divine sayings and prophetic inspirations that underscore Allah as a caring and supportive attachment figure, and the suggested supplications which reveal individuals' deep and dynamic relations with Allah.
He said deep and dynamic relation, but he only picked the support and supportive and caring attribute of Allah. Again, all of these in the method we can see that they make this limitation based on something, based on some purpose, based on some theoretical framework or theoretical perspective. Okay, so what is the theory behind this? What is the guiding theory for this research? As the title said, if we understand, the attachment theory, it's one of the theory in psychology. That's why when you do research, when you apply Maqasid methodology for a certain discipline of knowledge, then you have to master that discipline of knowledge first, so that you can understand the influence of this discipline of knowledge in this, and how they pick the Quranic verses. Okay, so if we refer to the method that we reported, all of the reason, all of the criteria, the limitation is based on the attachment theory. So it means that they just pick some messages, some verses in the Quran, some hadith that submit to, that serve the attachment theory. Okay, so they put the attachment theory as the worldview, or the philosophy, or whatever, the one that is on top, and the Quran is just some reference that they pick and choose according to this theory. So this is the fundamental error of this methodology. And they do not, this article has no critique of the attachment theory, and they don't explain, and they don't really discuss about the limitation of attachment theory. If we study psychology, actually the attachment theory is a theory about a baby and the mother. Yeah. So if the baby, the baby will be calm and peaceful if they have a good attachment to the mother. So it's a relationship between children and the mother. Okay, and even in the experiment, they use a surrogate mother. So the experiment is with monkey, yeah, and the monkey will be calm even though he face something that is frightening when he holds the mother, and then the experimenter changed the mother with a dog that looks like, that feel like the mother, and the monkey and this dog can function as the surrogate mother for the monkey, and the monkey will feel safe when he hug this dog because he thinks that this is the mother. So this is the theory, and they want to apply this to the relationship between us, between Muslims and Allah. So that's so far away, yeah, from the context. Actually doesn't fit at all, but they make a conclusion about it. They think this is a valid study. So we can see that this study actually does not submit to the Quran as the guidance, but they submit to the attachment theory. But they are using Quran as to support, yeah, to support their conclusion. But they don't submit to the Quran. Quran is only used, being used here to serve their theory. So this is one example, yeah. And if you if you search for more articles that talk about Islam and Islamic psychology and so forth, you might find similar thing that you should be careful about. Okay, so this is why the Maqasid methodology is a very important, because in the Maqasid methodology we are learning how to submit to the Quran, how we are learning how to understand the message of the Quran and the purpose of the Quranic verses, so that we will submit to it. No, we don't put the Quran as an object, but we put the Quran as the guidance who guide us. Okay, the object actually is ourselves, because psychology is a science about ourselves, and in other the other meaning of self is our soul. Yeah? Our soul usually translated as our self. Yeah, so this is why this is very important to understand. Okay, how more time that we have? Okay, maybe this is the half of my presentation, right? And the next one, now, how can we use the Maqasid approach to construct a theory? Yeah, this is the basic steps of model of Maqasid approach. Yeah, it start from the purpose, and then a cycle of reflection, and also the framework, and some empirical and literature review, and then the construction of theory. Yeah, so this is the general model. And I will give an example. If we want to construct a theory about mental health, yeah, first we have to understand the purpose. So we have a purpose to understand mental health, but we have to free ourselves from the existing theory of mental health, because if not, then we will be trapped into the perception or the worldview, the mindset of the theory. So we have to free ourselves from the theory, and we just start with the basic concept, mental health. What is mental health? What is the purpose of mental health? And then we ask Quran, and then we read the Quran, yeah, and then we try to understand the message of the Quran that relates to mental health, as we know so far. Okay, so in doing so, we always, we need to be always aware of the purpose of our study, and also we need to always focus on the purpose in the Quranic verses that will answer our concern, that will answer our questions. Yeah. Okay. To do that, we will use we will start with the ayat and the verse, yeah, that give us the basic idea, and then we expand the verse that is relevant to this message. Then we will construct the understanding of mental health from as much as possible message from the Quran that we can access and we understand, so that we have the comprehensive understanding about mental health. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that our knowledge will not, it's impossible to have a perfect knowledge or perfect theory, but at least if it's started from the Quran and started from our sincere submission and also seeking for guidance from the Quran, inshallah there will be some insight, yeah, some insight. Okay, so one important verse or one important message of the Quran that we can assume that it relates to mental health is Surah Al-Fajr, yeah, verse number 27 until 30. So it says that ya ayatuhan nafsul mutmainnah irji'i ila rabbiki radiyah fadkhuli fi ibadi fadkhuli jannati. So there's some message here, there's some statement here. First, mutmainnah, nafsul mutmainnah is the condition of the soul, condition of the self, yeah. And then Jannah is the destination, right? So if we use the Maqasid framework, we can start with the objective. So the objective of the objective of mental health, yeah. Okay, this is the list to be more clear. Yeah, objective, concept, values, command, universal law, proof, and proof. Okay, so the objective of mental health. What is the objective of mental health according to the Quran? If we learn from the verse in the Surah Al-Fajr, we can understand that the final destination is the objective. So the final destination of mental health is to enter Jannah. Okay. Once we understand this, then we can search the whole Quran, and we will find a coherent message, coherent, information and purpose. Yeah. So the Quran is always referred to the Jannah, to the hereafter. So there is no message in the Quran that those who have a healthy heart or healthy soul will prosper in this world only. But otherwise, the Quran said that those who have there has a disease in their heart, who refuse the truth, they will, some of them will prosper in this world, but they will not enter Jannah. They will not successfully, they will not prosper in the hereafter. So from those messages, we can conclude that this is actually the purpose. This is the objective of mental health. Actually, if we look at the verse, the order is not from the objective, but the order is from the condition. Yeah, the condition of mental health is a peaceful soul. So peace in the heart, peaceful soul, nafsul mutmainah or qalbu salim. Yeah, we don't have time to analyze many verses. I just gave some examples. Yeah, and both, nafsul mutmainah and qalbu salim, both is the prerequisite or is the condition that will make us enter the Jannah. So meaning that mental health is a peaceful heart or qalbu salim, nafsul mutmainah or qalbu salim, which means a peaceful soul or a peaceful heart. So this is the condition, and the purpose of it is to enter Jannah, because Jannah is a peaceful place. Okay, so the peaceful place for peaceful heart, peaceful soul. So it relates to that. Okay, now we got the objective, we got the condition, the concept actually. Yeah, if we talk about the Maqasid framework, this can be called the concept of mental health. So mental health is a peaceful soul. Those who have mental health have a peaceful heart. Okay, and we can discuss more about the nafs and the qalb, your soul and the heart, and I think I already discussed it in my paper, about the human potential. So actually those two terms are not two separate things. Those two terms are the different dimension of the same thing, which is ourself. The qalb and the soul and the nafs. The soul and the heart actually is intertwined. Okay, so we have a concept, we have an objective, and what is the values? So we can explore the Quran about the values that will make us have a peaceful heart and also enter Jannah. And this is only a few that we can present here, and we can find this in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, and almost all the Surah refer to these things. Syukur, taqwa, sabar, forgiving. Taqwa actually is the first one is mentioned in the Surah Al-Baqarah. Hudalil muttaqin. Hudalil muttaqin. So muttaqin is the first values of an individual who will be granted Jannah, who will enter the Jannah. And also in the Surah Al-Hujurat, the verse number 13, that's also very famous. Taqwa is very important. But then there's a shukur also in many surah. There's a verse in the Quran about the Prophet Daud and Sulaiman. Allah said that work so that you can become shukur. You can shukur is the purpose of work in this world. So shukur actually the destination also, it's also the values. So when we study the Quranic verses, we cannot categorize them into some distinct, categories. Yeah, but I mean, because everything is connected to each other. So shukr can be the purpose also, but this can be the values also. Yeah, and sabr, of course, it's very strongly stressed in the Surah Al-Baqarah, the verse numbers 155 and 56. Yeah, about this, the test of Allah. Yeah, and those who have sabr, it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be sad or suffer. Yeah, because those who have sabr, they will understand that everything is from Allah, and then it will return to Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un is the character of sabr. And one more thing, when we talk about a peaceful heart, the Quran also explain it from the opposite, like wala khawfun alaihim wala hum yahzanun. So a peaceful heart is the one who are not anxious and who are not sad, who are not afraid and who are not sad. Yeah. So this is already stated since the first human being, since the Prophet Adam. Yeah. Wala khawfun alaihim wala hum yahzanun. That's another way of understanding the concept of mental health. Yeah, and then the comment. Yeah, the comment for us, so that we will experience this. We experience la khawfun alaihim wa la hum yahzanun, is to follow Allah's guidance. Yeah, I mentioned here in the Surah Al-Baqarah 79 is when the Prophet Adam is sent down to earth. Allah said, if you follow my guidance, you don't need to be worried and you don't need to be sad. Yeah. So this is already said to the Prophet Adam, and then it's said again, and in many part of the Quran it is said. Yeah, this term, wala khawfun alaihim wala hum yahzanun, and that is kind of the condition of mental health. And in order to have that condition, Allah command us to follow Allah's guidance. Yeah, to have faith on Allah, iman on Allah, and also the hereafter, and also to do amal soleh. Yeah, so those who have faith on Allah, who believe in Allah, who has iman in Allah and the hereafter, and do amal soleh, they won't be worried and they won't be sad, meaning that they will be healthy, they will be peaceful. Okay, so that's why we can understand the message from many directions, from many dimensions, but it will connect to a certain understanding. And then the universal law. Yeah, the universal law is mentioned in the Surah Ar-Ra'd. This is just example again. I am not able to present all of them, but you can find some other message, some other verses that support this message. Yeah, and of course I haven't done studying the whole thing. Yeah, I just picked some example of the subsample. You may say it's some sample, but it's going to be it's going to be better if you can collect the whole verses that support this, because nowadays we have this software, so it's going to be easier to find the verse and so forth, and even Google can find it for you. Yeah, if you know how to search for it. So that's why I said before, my paper that is already published, I also I'm aware that it's not perfect. Yeah, maybe there's more verses that can support the idea, but so far these verses are coherent with each other. Yeah, so this is also very important, that only with by dhikrullah the heart will be at peace. Yeah, the heart will be at peace. So peaceful heart, peaceful soul is gonna happen when we dhikrullah. So dhikrullah actually is not only in our mouth, in our tongue, but also in our heart. So when we dhikrullah is not just saying something like subhanallah, but in our heart we feel, we are aware, we have a consciousness of the presence of Allah. That's what makes us at peace in the heart. Okay. And yes, Asmaul Husna will help us to reach that state, but we don't just pick and choose of those 99, Asmaul Husna. We have to understand the whole thing, because our experience in our life is not always in the same condition. Yeah. So sometimes we have we have some joy, sometimes we face difficulties. So for all of those situations, the Asmaul Husna will help us to understand what is happening, and to understand how can we relate this to Allah. So that kind of attitude, or that kind of awareness, is the one that can make our heart is at peace. Yeah. So this is the universal law. And then the next one is the grouping. Yeah, the grouping. Of course, there are more. Yeah, but this is the three main grouping of people. Yeah, we can also, if we look at it from the mental health perspective, so this is also a grouping, because we can see in Surah Al-Baqarah in the early ayat, from number 1, if we include the Alif Lam Mim, until verse number 20. Yeah, it's explained about these three groups of people. Yeah, the muttaqin is the one who believe in the ghaib. Yeah, and the munafiq is the one who has disease in the heart, meaning they don't have a mental health. And the kafirun. Sorry if I'm mistaken in the translation, but what I mean is those who reject Allah. Yeah, it is also illustrated in a term of disease, yeah, in the heart. They cannot hear, they cannot see, they cannot feel, something like that. Okay, so this is the grouping. So the only one who will have mental health is the muttaqin, because this is the one who follow the command of Allah. Yeah, follow the Allah guidance. This is the one who will have a peaceful heart. This is the one who will inshallah enter the Jannah. I mean, with Allah's blessing. Yeah. And the proof, the proof actually is there in the stories. There are a lot of stories. Yeah, I just put here example of the story of the Prophet Yusuf. Yeah, how he experienced bad things. Yeah, he was betrayed by the brothers, but he's always have a peaceful heart. He always remember Allah, so that he's become happy. It's a happy ending story. Yeah, and of course, it is the more important message there is that the Prophet Yusuf is not only will not only success in this world, but also will success in the hereafter. Because if we only look at the story without connecting to the other messages of the Quran, maybe we might have the perception that the Prophet Yusuf is healthy, wealthy, and prosper in this world. But actually, it's more than that. Yeah, that's why we need to connect to others' messages. Okay, so that's an example on how we try to learn to construct understanding, with the Maqasid methodology from the Qur'anic verses, messages, and we have to be open, humble and open, because maybe when we study it again, we will find something new to add to it. And if we already did the right way to understand it. Inshallah, the new information will strengthen our understanding. But sometimes the new information maybe correct our understanding. Maybe our understanding is not quite correct, and then there's some other message that will give us the insight, or maybe we have to refine this into this way, something like that. Okay, I think that's all that I am presenting for today, and I expect more questions so that we can discuss more. And I already share the article. So if you want to learn more detail, you can read the article. Thank you very much. Wallahu a'lam bishawab. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair, Professor Bagus. As always, mashallah, there are questions. Some of those are big and universal. Everybody wants to, I think, ask the same questions most of the time when it comes to Islamic perspective. So I'll do my best to ask the questions most relevant to the presentation. I love the question of Mariati Dahim. How would you define mental health from Islamic perspective?
That's what I just presented. I mean, mental health is just the entry point. You know, if we don't define it right away, but we try to find what is the message, what is the essence of mental health, because mental health is not Qur'anic term. If you find mental health in the Quran, you will not find any information about that. So that's why we start to investigate about mental health as an entry point, but it's not the term mental health that guide us, but the essence of mental health, the essence of mental health. So what is the essence of mental health? And you can ask, you can refer to any theory and you will find the essence of mental health simply is something that doesn't disturb you, some condition that you are not disturbed by anything. So I think if you have a mental health, you will be at peace. So that's kind of the essence of mental health. And then we find the message in the Quran is more comprehensive there. If you refer to the WHO, yeah, they define mental health as something that is not talking about the mental. It's not talking about the nafs, the soul. They're talking about the behavior. You know, mental health is when you can cope with your problem. Mental health is when you can function in your life, something like that. So it doesn't touch the essence of this mental health. So that's why you need to expand your curiosity and try to understand the essence of it. Okay, please, Prof. Yasir, maybe you want to add.
Barakallah fiik. If you allow me, Sister Sundus.
Mm-hmm.
If you allow me, inshallah.
Oh, please. Oh, please.
Jazakallah khair. I wanna thank Prof. Bagus for this presentation, and I would like to tell our students and researchers that in a public presentation, the Prof gave a very general framework that if you are looking at the words he used and the concepts and so forth, you could see behind that a lot of research. But I recommend that you read the paper that the Prof wrote because it has the details, and you read, of course, other publications of Prof, because then you can get into the details of the knowledge. That is important because you see in a public presentation, you give a framework. I do that all the time, like about fiqh and other issues. And then if you really want to read, you have to read a few hundred pages. You cannot get this from a post or a tweet. You have to really focus and read and question the fundamentals. What I learned today from Prof is the importance of theory in questioning the fundamentals. As a psychologist, you look at things and you don't see that you have a different framework from the Islamic framework as you analyze your reality. And we have seen this with political scientists, with economists, with architects, with engineers. They come from a worldview, and it is important to take a step back and revise your theories and the fundamental principles upon which you constructed your own knowledge and your old worldview. And then after fixing your worldview, then you can come and produce Islamic knowledge. That is basically the essence of Prof's lecture today. But for our students and researchers, please read, please be involved in our research network, because then you will have the ability to have shura and have ijtihad jama'i, collective ijtihad with your colleagues. And occasionally you would have access to people like Prof. Bagus, who would guide you in your journey. It's not an easy journey. You're constructing a civilization. You're not just constructing knowledge. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward our Prof for his lecture and reward all of you. Jazakallah khair. Just wanted to give a comment. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah fikum jami'an. I think most of the questions are pretty much asking you to maybe elaborate more, Professor Bagus, regarding the methodology. So a few questions are pouring into how would you evaluate the theory, for instance. I believe it's Brother Omar Cole asking, how would you the methods of our Muslim predecessors like Al-Balkhi fit into Maqasid framework? And how could one describe their methodology? It seems most of the questions that I'm going through are really asking for another lecture. It's a bit challenging to give this. And I really love, one of the things that I love about Maqasid Institute and the way Professor Oda kind of tends to address most of the inquisitive questions that we get from attendees is to read more. We go back to the Qur'anic center approach to seeking knowledge. Most of these public presentations are to really ask on how to collaborate, right or wrong, so more of a concise yes or no. So I'm not really sure how Professor Bagus would you like to address the question regarding the methodology.
Okay, I'll try, inshallah. So when you talk about knowledge, you have to understand that there's a system, there's a structure, and it started with the philosophy, the worldview. It depends on what knowledge are you going to study. For example, if you are going to study psychology, so you have to understand, you have to, contemplate about your view, your worldview about human being and human life. And this worldview, there are several worldview that is different. For example, if you you think, if you adopt humanistic psychology, for example, the worldview of this life is that you are the master of this universe. You are the one who have the freedom to do whatever you want, and you will decide what makes you happy and things. That's the worldview. And from the Quranic perspective, actually, it's not like that. So that's why if you want to really go through the journey from the starting point, you start with questioning the worldview. Okay, so any theory you can analyze and try to unveil the worldview of this theory. So why this theory is like this? So because they have this worldview, they have this way of defining human being and also human life. So that is the starting point. Once you understand that, once you can differentiate between your worldview, the Quranic worldview, and the other worldview, so then you can choose which way you are going to go. So that's why then you will find some messages that will answer to your questions about why and what and how this issue is going. So that's the starting point. So what I'm presenting is already from the middle, because we don't have time to start from the beginning, but at least this is an example on how we question the issue that we have concern about. Okay, I think, I don't know if this answers your question, but that's a very fundamental thing to see.
Jazakallah khair.
One more thing. You have to understand the essence of the issue. Once one of my students asked me how the Islamic approach, yeah, you may say the Islamic psychology see PTSD, post traumatic PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome disorder, and then of course there's no such thing as PTSD in the Quran. But what is PTSD actually? What is the essence of PTSD? And then when he tried to dig what is PTSD, then he come into this anxiety, this depression, his anxiousness. Yeah. So that's the essence. Once we touch the essence, then we can see it in the Quran. Actually, it's the condition when you don't have PTSD, in your turn. Okay, so you have to go deeper to the essence, to the hakikat. Yeah, in Arabic, you may say hakikat. What is the hakikat here? Okay, and about al-Balkhi, I think what I see from al-Balkhi, I assume, yeah, because I haven't found the evidence, the text here, the citation, but I assume al-Balkhi start from this verse. He start from wala khawfun alaihim wala hum yahzanun, because the first two characteristic, the two, what do you call it, type of diseases, of mental diseases, yeah, is anxiety and depression. And then he go to anger and obsessive compulsive disorder. But the starting point is anxiety and depression, and that is khawf and what do you call it in Arabic? Yeah, wala la tahzan. It's something that, yeah,
خوف وحزن.
huzn, yeah, khawf wa huzn. So al-Balkhi, I think, is started from that, because when I read the introduction, yeah, al-Balkhi actually is not a practicing therapist. He's a theorist, and if he is a theorist, he might, he's not building the theory from the practice. I assume he built the theory from the Quranic passages, because he's also, the scholar of Islam, of Quran. Yeah. So those kind of things that,
Jazakallah khair, Professor. I think a comment on most of the questions. Maqasid framework is one manhaj, one curriculum that you can use to renovate and reclaim the research or the concept of ijtihad in scholarly sciences. Some of the questions have been asked regarding, can we apply Maqasid framework on biological sciences, or can we use it to verify inferences and deduction that we do from other studies? Can we use it to, filter through the concepts that are coming? So the answer to all of that is yes. Not only as a student of the advanced Maqasid course, actually as a person who have in academia, who have seen Maqasid Institute bring and build on a Shatibi concept of Maqasid al-Islam to Maqasid framework, because these questions are recurrent. How can we renovate research? How can we bring academia back to sanity? How can we negate the secular component of producing concepts and reproducing concepts that are not necessarily relevant and not necessarily clearly defined, and they don't match, even if they are well-defined, they don't necessarily match our worldview and conceptual understanding of a human role on this universe, right? So I think most of the questions, the right answer for those is do take the course of the advanced methodology in Maqasid Institute. It will be a good step to start. And from that, actually, Professor Auda and all the people who have worked on the course, they have listed so many readings that can open your horizon. And if you wanted to extend your curricular learning, that would be a good direction to walk into. There's also a tendency for us to want a quick fix and a band-aid for everything. There's none. We've been pretty much idle and really just receptive and consumers of a secular research perspective. And now it's time for us to produce and communicate. It seems like we are doing a lot of internal work amongst us Muslims, but we're not really doing outreach. And the reason for that is we do internalize the inferiority of Islamic approach. And I think that Maqasid methodology or Maqasid Institute, or even the wonderful work that is done by Professor Bagus internationally, can tell you that we have been producing a lot. It's a matter of the interest of reception. So again, the website for Maqasid Institute is in the chat. The collaboration webpage is in the chat, and Professor Bagus' website link is also in the chat, and I will repost those again. The other question specific to your presentation, Professor Bagus, is the one related to the use of the Qur'an. It seems like your comment was not fully absorbed and digested. I think Zuhal asked a question related, if we were to submit to the Qur'an when generating theory, how do you do that? Which is again asking about methodology. And how can you check whether your theory is in accordance with the Qur'an or it contradicts it? And if this is if you want to use the Qur'an, isn't that considered using the Qur'an? And on the other hand, your critiques on the mentioned paper, they use the Qur'an. Isn't that the same thing when you ask what is mental health and look into the Qur'an for answer? So doesn't that mean you are using the Qur'an as well? So I guess the concern is like, why did you criticize the word use in that paper? If you want to elaborate on that, please.
Okay, so when I say the paper used the Quran, because when I read the result and the conclusion, it's not coherent with the Quranic message. So they claim to refer to the Quran, but their conclusion is not based on the Quranic message. So that's why I said that he used the Quran to justify his purpose. And we can identify that this paper actually submit to the attachment theory. And there's some other example of those who use the Quran to submit to, for example, Freudian theory. Yeah. So those idea, they say that nafsu ammarah is the id, and nafsu lawamah is the ego, and nafsu mutmainah is the superego. So they use the Quran to justify Freudian theory. Okay, so if we submit to the Quran, it means that we will follow whatever the Quran say about whatever the Quran answer.
Thank you so much. I think there is also a confusion because I believe your comment was specifically to their theory listing when you mentioned that their term of that Muslims use Allah for living, and that's where you.
Yes, that's the conclusion of the study.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I don't think that Professor Bagus said we're not supposed to use Al-Qur'an to lead our methodology. The comment and the criticism was regarding the statement in their theories, use Allah, that Muslims use Allah as a safe haven in order to live in this world. And
Yes.
I think the concept of using a divine entity was not necessarily academically welcome. So that's, that's an academic introduction to concepts. And what I loved about what you have introduced, Professor Bagus, and for all of those who are working in research from our audience, is that when you consume literature from an Islamic worldview and perspective, you will be able to pinpoint the gaps between your worldview and the academic production. So you should always take it with a grain of salt and filter it through La ilaha illallah, your understanding of your role in this world. So the paper actually has a lot of gaps. It's really surprising sometimes to see what things can be published. I don't think that Professor Bagus pointed out that you should not be using the Qur'an and Sunnah to filter through the methodology or the research that you're doing. His comment was their statement regarding a relationship to God or spirituality amongst Muslims is that we use Allah for the purpose of living. and that is very far from the Islamic publications and the Muslims' introduction into the sociology or like the social sciences. But hopefully that answers your question. I think.
Well, I want to add, to clarify the word use. When you use something, it means that you don't need it every time, because you use it when you need it. So that's what I'm trying to say. You don't use the Quran. The Quran is higher and broader than yourself. So you have to always refer to the Quran, not use. Yeah, the word use actually, in language wise has a certain meaning that cannot be applied to the Quran. You refer to the Quran is the right word. But if you use to the Quran, it means that a Quran is kind of a tool that will help you. That's the thing that I'm criticizing here. So when you submit to the Quran, you always refer to Quran. You have asked for Quran to answer, to solve your problem, to answer your questions. So this is some language, thing that linguistic term that we have to differentiate, between the use and to submit and to refer to follow, okay.
Jazakallah khair. Professor Bagus, another question I think also related to the methodology and framework from Mariati. What would one need to do to avoid getting into a situation of pick and choose ayahs to serve the research topic? This is an interesting question.
What I learned from Dr. Ali Abdul Mu'in, one method in studying Quran is tilawah. Tilawah means that we have to read the whole Quran to have the vocabulary about the Quranic message. Of course, we will not understand altogether, but at least when we already read the whole Quran, then we know that some verses explains to each others. Okay, so if we just pick and choose and neglect the other verse that might also explain this issue, that's gonna be risky, dangerous. Then we will put our interest in it. We will make the Quran serve our interest. That's not the thing that is suggested here. So that's why, in order to avoid pick and choose, you always have to study the Quran from cover to cover, so that you will be familiar with the message of the Quran, so that you will not be trapped in picking a certain verse, just ignoring the others. Okay, so you have to do that.
Jazakallah khair. Professor Jasser, I think you always have a great addition on how to navigate the Quran as, Quran-centered education, and use it as, if you would like to add that, please.
No, inshallah, the answer of Prof, if I may elaborate on it, that to integrate between the ayat and to have the tilawah that Dr. Ali Abdul Mun'im is actually teaching in the Maqasid Institute in Indonesia, that has to do with integrating and connecting, not to take a verse or half a verse. And to integrate and connect, you have to be familiar with the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And really, depending on your level of scholarship, if you're at the level of our Prof here, where you are trying to reimagine and re-envision the discipline, you have to be very familiar with the Quran, and you have to spend a lot of time with it, not just read it once or twice. You have to be familiar with the Book of Allah. If you are more of a practitioner, an applied person, and you're not thinking at the level of theories and foundational knowledge, then familiarize yourself with what you are doing and read more and try to understand from the people who are more familiar with the Book of Allah. It is always tricky to avoid apologism that our Prof talked about, that people apologize for something that in the reality, and using the Quran to prove it, instead of coming from the Quran to correct the reality and to judge the reality and critique the reality. That is what our Prof is saying here, and it's also difficult to cut what we call in the course the fragmentation or the partialization, to cut the verses. And nobody knows all the connections except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But at least we should not be very, very partialistic and try to integrating knowledge. So I understand the Prof's approach as an integrating of knowledge approach. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallahu feekum.
Wayakum, inshallah. Another thing I think in general for research is to try your best not to come in with a theory to try to prove it. You should use the Qur'an to generate your hypothesis, not the other way around. So sometimes really the level of where you apply, and that is why I think logical fallacies chapter in the book for Maqasid methodology is a great way to answer to your question, inshallah. I think another question, Professor Bagus, is how can we use Qur'anic approach of mental health to tackle the problems we confront in the clinical psychological sessions? Since you're suggesting the Maqasid framework as an approach, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that as well.
Yes, actually, I'm working on what I call as tazkiyah therapy. So this is an approach for clinical, application, and I'm trying to integrate the multidimensional problems of human psychology. So that's why actually I already authored a chapter about tazkiyah therapy, and inshallah Prof Amber Haq and Dr. Abdullah Rahman, as the editors, tell me to that it is going to be published by the end of this summer by the Routledge publisher. But that's only the excerpt of this idea. In the tazkiyah therapy, I integrate 7 theoretical framework to understand human being and human mental problems, so that we can approach to it from 7 different directions. And one of it, the simplest one, is the essence of the purpose of life. It is like that. Actually, life is a journey from Allah to Allah. That's the essence of the meaning of life. That's one of it. And then the one that is I already written in the paper, that is circulated, that is shared, that is published in the journal Mimbar Russia. That's another theory. So there will be 7 theories. So I'm trying to publish it one by one. Okay, so that if you can use that, if you can learn that and understand that, then you can see how to apply it to the clinical setting.
Thank you so much, Professor Bagus. And I think ISIP also does a lot of curricular learning and lectures. So I think what Professor Bagus is suggesting, and I will endorse that, really follow all those who are leading in the Islamic psychology, identify an approach that you find healthy and that you can understand and introduce it into your practice, regardless of where that falls, even if it was in the Western sphere or the secular realm. And may Allah reward you, Professor Bagus, for bringing in more toolkits into, I think, a field that has been occupied for a long period of time. Another great question.
I think I need to comment on that. So what I'm trying to construct is an integration approach. So I don't make a new approach that is different from the existing, but I'm integrating the approach with this tazkiyah therapy. So maybe you can use some CBT technique, you can use some behavioral rehearsal or whatever, but I reframe it in a comprehensive approach that I call the tazkiyah therapy. So it's not something that is different, totally different or distinct from the existing, but it's the integration, the integration of the existing. So you don't have to worry, as long as when you're already practicing a clinician, first thing that you should switch is your worldview of health, mental health, and human life, and the purpose of life and things like that. And then you can use the method, the techniques. Actually, what is out there right now is more is on the techniques, yeah, but they usually don't really explain about the mindset or the worldview behind it. But what you learn from the school, actually, most of them are the techniques. And this Tazkiyah therapy provide this mindset so that you can use the techniques, whatever techniques, when it is applicable to the case. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sundus, for moderating such excellent way. Thank you, Professor Bagus, for your beautiful lecture. Thank you, Professor Auda, for your amazing inputs. I just wanted to add some reflections with regards to this last questions, and also how people that are under trajectory to become scholars, but not yet scholars, could contribute. Because I think that, for instance, in the IPRN, in the Islamic Psychology Research Network that we're establishing, we will have Professor Bagus there as one of the leading scholars, together with many other leading scholars like Professor Rasul, Professor Dareen, and Dr. Rabi, etc. And what people that are on the trajectory to become scholars can do, besides, of course, rooting themselves in the Maqasid methodology by doing these programs and courses online as a start, is also to study and to work with Professor Bagus, for instance, help him in his studies, be with him. It's kind of like the whole Islamic tradition of sitting knee with your fellow professors and fellow scholars to learn from them. So you can actually contribute to your participants by collecting data to Professor Bagus' research in the future, or, supporting the dissemination of the knowledge. And in that way, you will learn, and with time, you can apply and become a scholar by yourself. Even writing the biography of scholars is a way to support the scholars. So sometimes we think that in order for me to do scholarly work, there's only one trajectory. I will become the scholar. Doesn't need to be that all the time. It could be first to serve other scholars, and then with time you can come to that point, and at the same time root yourself in the methodology that the Maqasid Institute, for example, is advocating. So I just want to bring that to the forefront, because in the ISIP and at Belkhi Institute, we get a lot of questions, a lot of people. I want to do research, but it's also important to work with that other aspects of research, because research is holistically. Collecting data for a research is also research. You see what I'm saying? And we all are important in the process of disseminating knowledge. So by you participating in this lecture today and disseminating into others, that's also to be part of the chain of research and dissemination and establishing of knowledge. Another thing I just wanted to add, I've been sharing the link to the WhatsApp group, so feel free to join that WhatsApp groups. That's also a way to be updated on what's happening in the research network. And also, you all will have the guidance if you want to do research by leading scholars, like, for instance, Professor Bagus. And when it comes to us who are mental health professionals, and I think Dr. Sundus answered the question in an eloquent way, but I also really agree with everything that Professor Auda and Professor Bagus said, is that there is importance to understand where we are in our knowledge inquiry process. Like, which type of knowledge do I embody for now? What can I do in that realm? And then partner up with other people that have knowledge in other realms and work together. You don't need to be the ustad or the master in all types of things. That's why the interdisciplinary approach is very important. How can, for instance, academical scholars like Professor Bagus collaborate with clinicians like yourself, and that you work together? Now, with Professor Bagus, you're also a clinician, so you have both roles within yourself, but not all people have that knowledge or had that interdisciplinary knowledge internalized within themselves. And it's also a way for us to integrate what we have to offer in our knowledge experience with the research that we want to do. Because what we need to also find in this day and age is how to apply the knowledge. For instance, in a clinical space, how do we apply psychology from an Islamic paradigm? The Tazkiyah therapy that, for instance, Professor Bagus is developing into the clinical practice. How do we take these methodologies and apply it? And then it's important to have clinicians that might not be scholars, but have that clinical experience. And when they collaborate with scholars, then that could be something that could be very unique for our field of psychology. So it's about finding your role, and also at the same time, as Professor Auda also said, and Professor Bagus and Dr. Sundus, to root yourself. Don't come with a hypothesis and try to connect it to Quran. Allow the Quran to generate the theories and the applications, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Yeah, I think there's always that desire, burning desire to be on the leading front, but nobody really recognizes the importance of the infrastructure. Excellent point, Brother Jamaluddin. I think this question may be answered by Professor Oda or Sister Yusra. Does the Maqasid methodology have any consideration or connection with other frameworks at all, like the biological basis of mental disorders and the treatment?
This question for who? For
I think I'm not really sure if you would like to answer it, since you have also a memorandum of agreement. I think the question asks if the Maqasid methodology have any consideration to extend beyond the mental disorders as a separate from the biological basis. So they want to know if there are other frameworks where Maqasid methodology will be applied. And as an example, the biological basis of mental disorders and the treatment. I think Professor Jasser, if you have any updates on potentially expanding the Maqasid framework beyond just philanthropic in human sciences, meaning more into the biomedical realm. I personally know that Dr. Zaid and I had kind of made some of these discussions. It really depends on how interested people are. The Maqasid framework would welcome always leads into multiple fields. So if you are interested in using Maqasid methodology and do what Professor Bagus have done, introduce it into either a project, a program, or even publication to introduce that to the academic consumption, please be at it. Maqasid framework is actually a toolkit for you to use in order to revive your utilization of secular sciences that alienate the concept of religiosity and Islamic worldview. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know, actually, Professor Bagus, if you are contributing more into the biochemical aspect of mental disorders into your work.
Actually, when we talk about psychology or the knowledge about human soul and the heart, actually, it is also a biological, like the nafs is also nafas, nafs, the breath, So when you talk about nafs, it's not only the soul, but it's also the breath, the essence of the body is the breath. So it's integrated, but of course it's not about the chemical compound or whatever, but the dynamics, like when you refer to al-Balkhi's work, this work is about Masalih al-Abdan wal-Anfus, so it's about the body and the soul. So it's not two separate entity actually, but of course there's a perspective here. If we talk about the health, knowledge about health, human health, you should address both the body and the soul. You cannot just address body and then you cannot just address the soul, because your body will be influenced by the soul, and the soul is also influenced by the body. It's a multi-dimensional, entity, because all of them are about us, human being. But if you study about rocks, for example, or about the stars, maybe it's not quite connected, but even that the message actually is connected, because when we read the Quran, Allah created stars is for us, stars, the universe actually is created for us, human beings. So there might be some connection also, and Allah used the metaphor from the wind, the trees, the water. That's a metaphor about us as human beings. So the connection maybe is not in a hard way, but it's in a soft way, in the meaning and the understanding and the science. And the science is very important. Actually, the universe provide the science that can help us understand about us and about our life. So I think we shouldn't think in distinctive manner. We should see the connection, not to differentiate. So the motivation here is to integrate, to connect, not to separate. Okay, so I think that's very important.
Jazakallah khair, Professor Bagus. That's another call actually for you guys. If you are not able to do the course, at least read the book. From my humble experience, it seems that logic and philosophy are not really mandatory in school education anymore. So logical fallacies in approaching research and science in general has become really narrowed. And there's the partialistic approach, each one, or compartmentalization. Each one of them is in compartments. One of my favorites, actually, psychologists who have introduced great transformative approach, you may be familiar with him, Professor Bagus, is Dr. Abdurrahman Dhakir al-Hashimi. He introduces a great platform called Fiqh Makani. It's all in Arabic. He has few, I think, outputs in English. But I love his definition of an-nafs, psyche, as الروح الجسد الزمن, soul plus body plus time. And I think the mental health is a part of both soul and body, and to think that it's a metaphysical science, or it can be partialized or compartmentalized in a metaphysical mentation or mental state, and a body as physical, is in itself a logical fallacy that does not really align with the root of the psychology science. So I would recommend and encourage like reading more into the definition and concepts. That's why I really loved Sister Mariati's question regarding how do we define mental health, and that's a good start always to build on, to root for your sciences. So I really appreciate you actually removing the distinction or the barrier between the serotonin theory or the physical aspect of psychological health and disorders, and the psyche or the philanthropic or the social sciences or the human sciences part of it. And I highly encourage you guys to look into the logical fallacies chapter, since it is pretty much, it speaks to all of the concerns that we have when we approach sciences. I think this is most of the questions that are so relevant and close to the presentation. Professor Bagus, it has been an honor, a pleasure, and a delight to be with you this morning after Fajr prayer at the Pacific time zone. There's probably no better way to spend my morning than these couple of hours. May Allah reward you and place barakah in your efforts, and may Allah take your science to generations to come and help heal hearts and minds that are at loss, and help us all find the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into all aspects of life, and help us revive and refresh our worldview. We look forward, inshallah, to having you more often. Brother Jamal ad-Din, it's a pleasure to be with you in person beyond the WhatsApp platform. And may Allah also place barakah in the ISIP Balkhi Maqasid Institute agreement, inshallah, and may it yield to many fruits for us to reap in our lifetime, and for our offspring and upcoming generations to do so. Sister Yusra, thank you so much for reaching out for me to do this work. And the audience, thank you so much for hanging in there for a couple of hours. That takes a lot of patience and perseverance. I'm so proud of you. May Allah place barakah in your time and compensate you for these hours with more barakah. I don't know, Professor Bagus, if you have any last words to say before I conclude, inshallah, with dua.
Okay, so maybe something that we have to keep in mind, yeah, that our knowledge will not be perfect. It means that there is always an opportunity to expand our knowledge. There's no finish, because knowledge actually is from Allah, and Allah's knowledge is unlimited. So never feel enough to learn. So always learn and always explore new knowledge. I think that's my last message. Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khairan.
Ameen, ameen. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك اللهم ونتوب إليك.